Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome, or hopefully it's welcome back to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KRISTEN, and our show today is Authentic Achievements. We have a number of exciting topics we're going to be discussing about what leaders need to know. And joining me for this program is my co-host and also our special guests backstage. We'll be bringing them out soon. So I just would like to remind you, if you're joining us for the first time, that we do have between 20 and 25 live shows each and every week, and you can watch them. The easiest one is to go to our website, usaglobaltv.com, or to our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV. So let me bring out my co-host and friend. She's joining us from the UK, and we'll get to know her a little bit better, especially for our people joining us on our new radio platforms. Her name is KIM-ADELE Randall. Let's bring her out to the show. Hi, welcome.
Hi, Dr. JACALYN. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good. It's Friday. The sun's shining. I mean, you've got to smile, haven't you?
Absolutely, I agree. It's only dark here in this room, but there's sun in my heart, and I know I'll get to see it after 5 today. So. But KIM-ADELE, you know, we have new people joining us all the time. And when I reached out to you to see if we could partner and do this show, you came up with this show title. And I would love for you to share more about what this title means and why you wanted to do this specific show.
Oh, bless you. Thank you so much. So, yeah, the title is also the title of my forthcoming book, and which is Authentic Achievements. And it really is about my last 30 years and how you have moved from feeling like you need to fit in, like you've got to comply with everybody else, that you've got to try and be the same as everybody else. And we live in a compare and despair society. You know, we compare ourselves with other people and find ourselves lacking and despair, but actually we're all perfectly imperfect. So Authentic Achievements really is about how people have gone on that journey to be their authentic self, and in doing so have achieved the goals that they wanted to achieve. So it was part of the book, as part of this show, we're reaching out to other people and hearing their stories, hearing their journey of how they've stepped into their authentic self, what challenges they've overcome, what lessons they've learned, what tips they can share with us to help their message be heard and also inspire us to go that extra mile.
Thank you so much. And while I have you on Spotlight, I'd love for you to share just a little bit about your backstory with as a hairdresser and so on. And then we'll bring our guest out.
Fabulous. Yeah, so I had an unusual foray into the business world, I guess. I left school as a hairdresser. I ran my own business at the age of 18. And then at the age of 22, I lost the feeling in my hands and legs. And that was the universe saying, you need to change. So I got a temporary contract in a bank while I worked out what on earth to do. And kind of the rest didn't really come planned. I worked for the next 25 years in financial services, made it into the board in my late 30s, moved across IT software and a variety of industries, convinced they were going to go, the hairdresser's on the board, get her off, this is awkward. And it never happened, but it kind of was my underlying story. So learning how to step into my authentic self, where I wasn't actually scared of saying to people, I don't have any qualifications apart from an MVQ in hairdressing, but you know what? Didn't stop me getting to the board. Hasn't stopped me still being there now. And then I retrained probably about 4.5 years ago after having my little girl to be an exec coach. And I now do either leadership coaching with other board level CEOs having done their role so I can help them, or also doing transformational change for organizations to help them build the culture they need for themselves and their people to thrive. So probably has been an interesting journey. I've learned lots along the way, and I've been really fortunate to meet some amazing people and have some amazing experiences that hopefully I can share and help other people achieve their goals.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I often think to myself, I have the utmost respect for hairdressers because they have to listen to the public every single day they're working. We just dump all of our stuff on them and they're supposed to make us look beautiful. And now they have all the details about our personal life. So it's kind of interesting.
It's true, but it is the greatest lesson I've ever had in leadership looking back, because as a hairdresser, they teach you to listen to the person, to understand what's really important, what they're trying to achieve, to create a safe space where they can share their vulnerability, and then to help them to leave being the best version of themselves. Well, that's leadership.
Yes,
and it took me a lot of years to realize that actually I had the best training and experience in becoming a board level leader because I was trained to be a hairdresser. And like you say, you've got to, if people do tell you literally anything, sometimes you're like, okay.
I've done it. Hello. Yes.
But actually, what a gift that people trust you with those things, that they trust that you are going to keep their vulnerability safe and allow them to leave as their best person. My hairdresser is still my hero. She still does that for me. And I couldn't be more grateful, because I think we all need that, don't we? We all need that person that we can go and come out feeling amazing.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And we're going to be talking to our guest about some of these issues, about what leaders need to know. And she's joining us from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the United States, which is a place that has a special spot in my heart. I'm excited to get back to Philly June the 12th for the Take Steps Walk at Lincoln Financial Field. So our guest today is Dr. Kristin Donnelly, and she is an award-winning four times TedX speaker. She is an international empathy educator. How fascinating is that? She's a researcher, and she's one of the good doctors of Abbey Research. So let's bring her out. I'm really excited because we've never had anyone who has this background on our show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So much fun. So it's an interesting topic that we have today. And KIM-ADELE shared about her background, and I can see a lot of synergies between the two of you. But I'd love for you to just start off the show by telling us what you do in your work as an international empathy educator.
Absolutely. You may never have heard of an empathy educator, and that's because we made it up. So don't feel like that's something that, like, should I know what that is? My business partner and my best friend, Dr. Erin Hinson, and I travel the world and do everything we possibly can to help people understand that empathy is a lot broader than emotions. In fact, it's the intentional, consistent opportunity to choose to understand yourself and others rather than assume. This applies to leadership, it applies to relationships, it applies to everything else. My background is that I've been part of a family business for over 30 years. My brother and I now co-own the multinational network of companies that our parents started back in the early 90s. And there's lots of divisions within it, lots of different things that happen. But our kind of driving animus as a family and as a business is to impact lives and create wealth. And I've done that through my work as a social worker, as a youth worker, as a college professor, and or college TA, really, honestly. And now my work with my division, Abbey Research. And it is such a gift to be able to help folks in a certain way, like manage their existential anxiety about the planet and also help them answer the questions they're afraid to ask out loud. And we've really begun this intentional journey towards empathy since the summer of 2020, when it felt like the very fabric of society was being unwritten and rewritten at the same time. And our calling is to step in and say, it's okay. It's not actually worse than it's ever been. We promise. This is how we move forward. And let's just take some assumptions we've always made about people. Let's investigate and get curious and ask some questions about it. So that's really what we do. We do it through a YouTube channel and a podcast and online trainings and in-person keynotes and all those kind of other things. But when you boil it down, I'm a professional question asker who encourages others to do the same.
I love that. That is brilliant.
Amazing. I love the whole asking those questions and being passionately curious. Sorry, Dr. Stafford, I talked straight over you. I was just excited.
No. I'm excited as well. What do you find comes up for people that they have difficulty embracing this, if you will? Many people don't like to ask questions. They'd rather just kind of just be silent and have someone else do all the questioning. So what are some of the challenges people share with you about why this happens to them?
There's a couple things. One is that they don't even know there are questions to ask. And the reason that they don't know that there are questions to ask is because our brains are lazy. So our brains their job is to keep us alive, not to help us evolve. And they are for having ideas and not for keeping them. So your brain kind of very quickly categorizes people into groups, experiences into groups. And it tells you if this new person that you've met should trigger your flight, freeze, or fight response based on other humans or other interactions you've already had. So people, for instance, I spend a lot of time right now talking to folks about college kids, especially D1 athletes, but larger Gen Z and the trauma of COVID upon Gen Z. And I'll kind of break it down for some folks and say like, okay, so think about it this way. This generation is the first generation that started having active shooter drills like all the way through elementary school in the United States. And then they dealt with COVID in some really, really specific developmental stages. So I want you to understand that a lot of folks in Gen Z do not know how to make low stakes decisions because everything in their life is high stakes. Going to school was a life or death decision. So just sit there for a moment and then understand that this might be why they don't do X, Y, and Z. So people don't even know to ask that question. They just start complaining because they've already made a set of assumptions about how college students should work. So that's one reason people don't ask questions. The second reason is that they're afraid of getting canceled. And to that, we say there is no such thing as cancel culture as long as you're willing to apologize. We've never canceled anybody as a culture that has apologized truly and sought restitution for simply using words. Behavior is a different ballgame, and we can have that conversation. But, you can be shamed. You possibly could break a relationship. All of these things are possible, but you're not going to get canceled. So let's unpack that word cancel. Let's stop using it. And let's say exactly what might happen. So if you say this word, for instance, when it started in 2020, I had a lot of people, especially in, mid 30s and up, asking or making statements like abolishing the police is so dumb. Like that's ridiculous. It can never happen. What all these people are just extremists. But then they'd say to me like, but I can't say that to anybody because then I'll get canceled. And I say, okay. So the first thing is to say, can you ask why they would want them to be abolished? Think about that first. And then say, who could I ask that question to? If there is nobody in your life you can ask that question to, you can ask Google. We have a pretty powerful, we have more computing power walking around in our pockets than the Apollo landing. So you can ask the Google. And if you ask someone and they get really upset with you and they say, it's not my job to educate you, or you can do your own research, say, I'm really sorry. I will go do that. Thanks. The problem is that we are terrified of apologizing, truly. And so that's what leads people to be afraid of doing anything, to be afraid of questioning, to be afraid of saying anything. We're terrified of stepping out of the status quo in a lot of ways. We're terrified of being called out for something. We're terrified that we might find out that we've been doing something wrong all along, and we might have to change our behavior. But all of those things aren't great. For instance, I am not particularly wonderful at remembering people's pronouns when they first transition. I really struggle. So I've gotten really, really used to apologizing. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I practice in the mirror when I'm about to see a friend who has just changed their gender pronouns. I do other things, but I make mistakes all the time. And I've just gotten really used to saying, oh my God, my bad, I'm so sorry. Women apologize for things that aren't actually their fault. That's not what I'm talking about. When you've offended somebody, you should apologize. When you've been hurtful, even unintentionally, it doesn't matter if you meant it or not. you should apologize. So I think those are the two kind of bucket reasons people don't ask questions. They're terrified of the answers because of this cancel culture situation that is false and trumped up, and we don't really understand it. And the other is that they don't know that there are questions to ask because they believe that the way that the way they see the world is the only and proper way to see the world. So my job is just to poke holes in those balloons. What if it's different? What if college is different than when you went? What if not every person wants to be a parent? What if gender isn't a binary? What if this is true? What does that mean? Let's chase that instead of constantly stating it's not true when there's some other people who say it is. So those are those two kind of buckets.
Well, thank you so much. That's really insightful. I don't have any children, but I do know people in Gen Z, and I'm actually thinking about what you just said. That's a really valid point about how they've grown up. And I'm actually going to start asking some questions myself that you really just inspired me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It is about being passionately curious, isn't it? Because we live in a world of polarity. For every up, there's a down. So, one of the things I try and teach my little girl, she's 5, is seek to understand the other person's point of view. They could be viewing it from a different space. So rather than putting a label on it, go, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that, because actually maybe I can learn more. Maybe I can expand more. And I think you're right on that whole apologizing when you've got things wrong. I find myself doing it with my little girl when I realize I've lost my temper or something. I'm like, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done that, because that means I lost control of my emotions. It's okay, I was frustrated because 52 times of asking you to eat your dinner is enough for any woman.
True.
I probably shouldn't have shouted at you. So let's understand it. Let's seek to see where that's coming from. But fascinating what you say. One of the things I've retrained in the last few years is reading facial expressions, because one of the things that brings us together universally, irrelevant of our age, our race, our gender, our culture, is the fact that it's been proven over the last, I think, 40 odd years ago, that we use the same combination of 43 muscles in our faces to demonstrate the same 7 human emotions. And our emotional brain responds 24 times faster. So actually, when we're seeking to understand people, if we can start looking for those emotions, we can spot where we're like, oh, okay, you look a little angry. I didn't expect you to be angry. So I'm going to seek to understand what I've done that's created that emotion, or what I've done that's created you to look happy, because I want more happiness. I like that. Why did that make you happy? So I think it's true, isn't it? How do we educate people to get comfortable asking questions and being comfortable to not know the answers to those questions? Because from what I've understood from leadership, one of the other reasons why people don't ask the question is in case they get asked a question back that they don't know the answer to. So they almost don't ask in the first instance to not put themselves in a position where they might feel exposed. Is that something that you've seen?
Oh, for sure. We have a terror of not being perfect publicly. Even those of us who would say I'm not a perfectionist, we're often internal ones. And we hold ourselves to standards we don't often hold other people to, especially those of us who are trying to be better humans, are trying our best, We're terrified of being called out for not already knowing what we're doing. So that's completely common. I'll say 2 things in response to what you very, very brilliantly just shared. One is that we need to remember that understanding is not condoning.
Yeah.
So you can understand somebody without agreeing with them. It's real easy to understand Vladimir Putin. He's pretty transparent, y'all. Like, I can understand why he did what he did in invading Ukraine and a sovereign nation, and then just go, and I think that's crap, and it's really rude, and it's wrong. But his motivations aren't like secretive, So you can understand without condoning. And the second thing is that one of the easiest ways I have learned to teach people to ask questions is to reframe really quickly the phrase, I know just how you feel, when someone tells you a story. So first of all, you have no idea how they feel, because you very rarely know exactly how you feel. Emotions, we're so at the beginning of emotional research. We still don't quite know how to always isolate exactly what you're feeling. English often, any language often feels too narrow for what we're actually doing in our bodies. And the other thing is that you're not that person, and they're not and you don't have their context. So instead of saying, I know just how you feel, say, I'm really sorry you're in pain. What can I do? I'm really sorry that this is happening. What do you need from me? You're not expected to have the answer, but it's just a really quick way to remember that their pain is not about you. It's about seeing if you can help them. When your child does something and you're just like at your absolute wit's end, instead of yelling, you say, tell me what's going on. As an employer, we advocate all the time, and we do it here at Abbey, and it has changed the game for us in disciplinary types of situations. Instead of sitting down and saying, you absolute freaking idiot, like, why'd you do this? Sit down and be like, so can you talk me through the story of this decision? Like, tell me what you were thinking. And the more you train yourself in those kind of, in my mind, very easy and obvious entryways into asking more questions, then it gets a little bit easier. You can also choose to chase the I wonder. So you're watching television and you see that there's a shooting in a range of spas in Atlanta, Georgia, and the United States. And one of the talking heads says that it was targeted against Asian Americans and that they experience a lot of racism. And you maybe have never heard that before or don't really know. And so you'll go, that's really interesting, and maybe move on with your life. Or you could say, that's really interesting, and Google racism against Asian Americans. Split second different decision. And then you find out this whole other things that you can chase and figure out and learn and understand differently. We ask ourselves questions a million times a day. And we normally, just like, as you said, we normally don't chase the curiosity, but it's there. So we can choose to just give in real quick. Just, I wonder why. Just give in and see where that takes you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Doctor, I have a follow-up question for you. In terms of having empathy, I teach people how to listen at an elevated level, and the questions and the curiosity are so important. And also so is the response, the listening, the taking in the information without judging. What are your thoughts about how to put the two of them together? With
practice. I'm a trained social worker, and listening is, I literally got graded on it. So it's something that I feel really passionate about. And I love that idea of listening at an elevated level. That's a really great phrase. So much of what I've researched and discovered, and I'm a sociologist, that's what my PhD is in, and my partner is an anthropologist. And all that means is that we have a lot of really fancy training by a lot of really smart people in how societies work together and how people interact with each other and create how they live. And something that we've noticed is that all of the solutions to our problems are super simple. They're just really hard to execute, and that's why we don't do it. So how do you marry empathy and listening? You just do it. You choose to listen to somebody without judgment. Whenever your brain goes off and goes, oh my God, what the hell is wrong with them? You stop yourself and say, nope, I don't know their story. When you're about to flip somebody off in the drive because they cut you off, instead of yelling at them, you just say, I hope you get there safely. I don't know your story. So the more you practice non-judgment in kind of every area, the easier it is when you start to listen. The other thing to remember with that non-judgment is, I think what elevated listening also includes not immediately jumping to solutions that you could offer. So some of it is giving power back to that person you're listening to and asking what they actually need from you. And I've heard a lot of people say, when you're in new circumstances, ask yourself the question, what does this moment need from me? How can I show up right now? And that is a question that a lot of coaches are encouraging their clients to ask themselves these days. I've heard it on a bunch of podcasts. So I think the answer lies somewhere in those things. Practice non-judgment in non-listening circumstances so that it becomes a much more well-oiled muscle within your psyche. And then also constantly remember that you have no idea what is happening with the person next to you. So the best way to find out what's happening with them is to ask them questions and to accept the stories they're telling you, rather than trying to rewrite them to make you more comfortable.
Bravo. I love this. And to a couple of comments to what you just spoke about. I now say if there's someone on the highway and they are driving, like, I'm not even judging, but they're driving quickly, faster than the speed limit. I say to myself, they obviously have something important they have to get to. Let me get out of their way. And the other thing, when you talked about listening without providing a solution, I love that, because you can watch people's eyes if they're no longer listening. They're like, oh, maybe I can help fix that by doing X, Y, Z. And also to the share that you had about the spas and the shooting, people might come back and say, oh, I remember I was at a spa and this happened to me. Like, they immediately take the story and switch it over to them. And the other person is no longer, I mean, you're talking about a newscast, but I'm saying in general, the other person is no longer has the floor. So the person literally steals the stage. So I think that's important as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much of the way that we do human interaction that centers ourselves in other people's lives. So part of assuming that we know somebody or that we can read somebody is that we expect them to respond the same way to something that we do. We get really angry when people aren't mind readers and can't know exactly what we want, because we a default, like I said before, assume that the only way to human is how we human. So this is really common and natural and normal. The thing is, like, we can choose to rewrite our brains. We can choose to rewrite different behavior. It takes a while. It's obnoxious. It's hard, but it leads to, we call it next level humaning. It leads to a fuller human experience for absolutely everybody. And so one of the things that I've really done in the last 2 years, as I've consistently practiced this non-judgmental empathy and understanding, is I've realized that what it's done is helped me truly grasp what I can control and what I can't. And my anxiety about the things I can't control is a lot easier to get rid of. I am heavily medicated, but even without that, I was constantly like, oh my God, this election or climate change, or, oh, like my niece is going to be born into this world. And I'm like, you know what? I can't control any of that. You know what I can control is knowing as much as I can to make informed, educated decisions. I can love the person in front of me at any given moment the best way I know how. And I can get really good at practicing gentleness with myself and grace to myself and others. That's it. That's what I can control. That's what I can do. That's what I got. And everything else, if I show up in this energy, other stuff's gonna come out. I can't fix a lot of the things that cause me serious concern. I can't, because they're just out of my hands. It's too big. I don't live in a state where I can vote for that person I wish wasn't elected. I don't live in a country where, like, I have deep ties to Northern Ireland. Deep. My husband is a citizen. He was born and raised in Northern Ireland. I can't vote there. I can't make decisions that would make his family's life easier or harder, depending on what would happen. I have no say. So instead, I love my husband and his family and everybody else around me, my employees, my friends, the best I know how. And that's it. That's all I got. And I think that really helps people. Like, I don't know. I just talked to so many people who are like, aren't you just so despairing of the world? Is it like everything is so much worse than it's ever been? It's all like, aren't you just so, you spend your days like learning about how people are terrible to people all over the world. How can you carry so much hope? Real simple. Humans are humans everywhere. Teenagers are teenagers everywhere and have been throughout time. Different people are different and they'll have different motivations and experiences and contexts, but fundamentally every human being wants to be seen, heard, and understood. So we provide ways for people to be seen, heard, and understood. The world changes. That's what I can control, and that's what I'll choose to keep doing as my work.
Congratulations. I'm so in alignment with the work that you're doing. It's so important. And I feel like what really resonates is that people can find inner peace as well. And that when we have inner peace, we can be one step closer to world peace if each and every one of us did what it is that you're sharing and worked with you and your organization to have this happen and take control and practice and have a different perspective.
We certainly hope so. I mean, like being a human's real hard. Like it's really hard. And it's not hard in that kind of like Instagram graphic, Pinterest kind of way. It's like legitimately difficult. But part of the problem is that we are not biosocially created to do any of this alone. And very honestly, like capitalism has forced us to do it alone a lot. And the way the world works has forced us to kind of pretend that we should be doing it alone. So the more we learn from each other and the more we lean on each other and rely and trust and build and all those kind of things, everything gets better. Cause like I work with people and I work with executives that like, you'll say world peace and they'll be like, oh my God, woo woo, ridiculous. Like, you know, that's like what Miss America contestants say. And like inner peace is so like, you know, granola. That's not what I'm about. But the problem is that it's not actually. Like what we all want is to have a safe and solid existence, both emotionally, physically, financially, everything. Very few of us want to actively suffer. Very few of us like actively with a cognitive decision choose to be in pain. Almost none. And so if we could also grasp that the person in front of you is a human person who is having a hard time being human, because we all are, I think it gets a little easier. This person is not the enemy. You haven't flattened them to the, you know, easiest common denominator to review them. You can acknowledge the fullness of their intersectional humanity. And then that allows you to constantly acknowledge the fullness of your intersectional humanity. And you can learn more about yourself and more about them, and you keep going. And everybody has a fuller and more abundant life at the end of this. And I don't know why we're pretending that that's not what we all want in the end. Like we judge joy so much right now. I don't know why, man. Like we all want to have joyful existences. We all want to have a good time and we all want to be at peace and we all want those things. Why are we judging people who just say that out loud? So I want to call that out and say that if you're a leader who kind of blows off kind of granola or woo-woo things, which is a lot of my friends and clients, I would encourage you to ask why it makes you uncomfortable. Why are you uncomfortable with the idea of world peace? Is it because you think it's not pragmatic? Okay, fantastic. But inner peace might be, or company peace might be. So like figure out what about it makes you laugh at it and or scoff or ignore it or say it would never work. And then figure out what would make it work and go from there.
Amazing. Just all smiles. Yes, 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 yes. KIM-ADELE.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, you know, at our base, human beings want to be listened to, understood, and respected. And that doesn't mean to say we have to agree, as you said earlier, but we don't disrespect. So we disagree, we don't disrespect. And I think when we get ourselves in that space, I talk to people about this all the time. I genuinely don't believe people hurt us on purpose. The reality is they're dealing with their own pain and we become collateral damage, but we make it about us. So, you know, I got hurt, they left me, they did this. We don't respond to what's happening. We respond to what we've made it mean. And often, you know, one of the things when I talk to my coaching clients is go, oh, okay, that's really interesting. So let's go back to what's actually happening, because you're telling me what you've made it mean. And now you're responding to the emotion that comes with that. But factually, it's here, it's present, it's in the moment. So let's look at those parts, because we talk about ourselves in facts and other people in stories, don't we? Because we don't know their facts. We haven't asked them their facts. And we aren't comfortable with that passionate curiosity, that being able to stand there and go, I just love to know what it feels like in your space, and how can I make it better? What can I do to improve today? One of the things I say to the clients that I work with as leaders is saying at the end of every meeting, ask people, have you got everything you need to thrive today? And what else could I do to make today a brilliant day? I should be amazed the impact that has, not just on your people, but on you. Because either they'll go, nothing, thanks, or could you just do what you did yesterday? Because that really helped me. So you get that feedback because you don't always get it, do you? So I love the whole concept of us opening up and being truly present to the moment without that fear of either having to have the answer, or Dr. Cliff, you talk about all the time about elevated listening. I see people all the time listening to interject, not to understand, because we get really uncomfortable with the silence when somebody stops. We feel we need to I've got to have something prepared so that when they stop speaking, I can leap in and let them know I was listening. And actually, there's different ways we can do that, isn't there? We can take a moment of pause and just go, that's really fascinating. What it's making me think is, and let them come on that journey with you where you are absorbing what they said and coming to a conclusion. Is there any hints and tips you can share with us and with the people watching or listening on the radio shows today about how they can get more comfortable with being present in the moment?
Practice. That's it. There's no magic pill. There's no... And there's going to be days you're good at it. There's going to be days that you're completely shit at it. And it's just practice. I think, and there's some people I am so much more present with my employees than my husband. That's just and so it's a lot easier for me to be really present with them than it is to be present with him. And so I'd have to discipline and practice and stop myself. And when I feel myself getting frustrated because I haven't actually been listening to what he's been saying, I've just been letting him make noise in my proximity. That's something that I have to do. But the answer to all of this is practice. I remember when I was getting my MSW, I was working with somebody and working with a professor who kind of said that we can teach you all the ways to do it, but some of them are going to work for some people and some of them aren't. You'll be told, make eye contact with people and that's how they'll know you're listening. Well, there's lots of folks who absolutely loathe eye contact and they feel it really, really violating actually, and really embarrassing. So how do you tell them that you're listening? Is that you can say, what I heard you say was, that's really fascinating. When you said this, I thought this. You can do other cues. At the core of it, you go back to the person in front of me is a person who deserves to be heard. And you hold that as center in your brain as you possibly can. We can have multiple thoughts at once. We're able to do that. You can hold multiple things as true at once. That's also possible. And so you just hold that person is a person and you kind of go from there, but it's just practice. It's just constant practice. And on the days, you're going to be bad, something my brother and I we're very lucky to be best friends and we have been our whole lives. So I actually run multiple companies with my best friends, which is an interesting exercise. And so something that we've kind of come up with, I tell my brother all the time, if you're being a jerk, I don't know what you need from me. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know how to interpret things. So what I need to know from you is if today's just not a good day. So he'll come up and he'll be like, I got an hour of sleep last night. My kid was up all night. I can't handle being a good, listener today. So if we were supposed to have a conversation, we'll have it tomorrow. Okay. Thanks. I'm not at my best today. I'll let you, we'll figure it out later. So you need to listen to yourself too. What can you offer in this conversation? Maybe you can't offer full attention. Maybe you can't offer your full self, but do the other person the dignity of letting them know what you can offer, of communicating with them that they're still of value and you still want to know. I've said it to friends so many times. I want to hear this. I need you to know this other thing is happening in my life. So I hear you. I see you. I love you. Can I come back to you when I can give you my full attention? Because right now I can't for whatever reason. And there's been other times where a friend has come and said, this is happening and I need your full attention. I've looked at that other thing and said, I'll be back. So it's always a messy journey. I make the joke all the time that anyone who sells you 3 easy steps to something life-changing is just literally selling something. Humaning is practice.
Doctor, I have to say, it sounds like you already took my courses and I certified you as an elevated listener. Absolutely fantastic about setting boundaries. I just love that. And I'll give you an example. At the end of today, 5 o'clock, after I've been broadcasting since Monday, my mother knows, please do not speak to me for at least an hour. Please don't call. Nobody contact me because I am not available. I need some time to come down. And I felt bad in the beginning, but then I thought, if I don't take that time, I'm actually not going to be available for anyone I can't be fully present. So I have to look within and set a boundary of what I need. It sounds like that's what you're saying is what we need to do.
Yeah. And it's real hard, especially when people start violating that the first or second time. And then you're like, I don't want to be a bother. It's not that big a deal. And you just let them rewrite it. So it's also a decision to be brave for 5 seconds and say, this is what I need. And the thing with love is that if it's in a person that you're in a relationship with, love isn't self-serving. Like, love is patient and kind. Love is an action verb. Love is elastic. It's an expanding entity, not a shrinking one. So as we learn how to love each other better, that love will expand and strengthen. So if you say to your mom or your partner or your child, and you kind of keep that and just say, I love you. I love you so much. And I can't love you as well if this, and this happens. How can we work together to kind of do that? And I have a friend who always says it's her policy to not go out after 5 o'clock on weeknights because she works best when she wakes up at 4 a.m. and gets on her Peloton and kind of thing. So it's just her policy. It's not anything about the other person. It's not personal against that other person. It's just her policy. And that language has really helped her. So if you're listening or watching and that language would help you, steal it. Trisha wouldn't care. And understand that being mindful of self is not being selfish. And being mindful of listening to your body and your soul and your spirit is not necessarily being self-centered. Doing that to the exclusion of everybody else is not great. And that's where we get back to talking about community and balance. But you need to know what you need, what you want, what brings you joy in order to truly engage and interact with the people around you. And in a leadership position, that's so true. So I loathe numbers. I find them to be mean and I don't like them. So I don't like doing math. Never been my jam. Sociologist. So I've made sure, and I hate details. I mean, I'm so bad at them. I forget things all the time. I'm the big picture person. I'm up here. And I know that what brings me joy is not that. And then in order to truly show up in what I am good at, which is public speaking and communicating and dreaming and coming up with new ideas and taking care of people, I cannot get bogged down in things like that will sap all of my joy. So we've created teams where I don't do the things that don't bring me joy on a regular basis. Can I step in? Do I know how to read my numbers? Oh, for sure. Can I step in and make financial decisions? Absolutely. But on a day-to-day basis, do I ever touch my corporate bank account? I do not. That's somebody else. That's somebody else's job. On a day-to-day basis, am I the one who futzes with all the website pixels and graphics and makes them look perfect? No, ma'am. Because that's not my strength. And that would just drain me and make me want to crawl into a hole forever and never emerge. Whereas I've got 2 other people on my team who love that and that fires them up. So a huge part of knowing what you need is being a good leader and being a good team member, because then we can all just build teams that work efficiently and effectively rather than a bunch of people who got promoted because they were good at something else. And we can actually actively have cohesive and productive organizations.
I just have to share with you that I've been so immersed in listening to you that I didn't run any of the ads, and and we have so many other topics we can speak with you at a future time, because you are just so engaging and you are an excellent speaker and you know your subjects. And I just love how you were so authentic and transparent about, no, this is not my thing. This is not my jam. So many people are just like, I have to do it all. I have to be an expert at all of it. And then they're miserable.
And burned out and exhausted, and everybody around you suffers. There are things that figure out to you what matters and what doesn't. And then hire people that can, that it really matters to them. It doesn't matter to me what a pixel is on the website. Really matters to my website designer. I bless her and I pay her. And then when she has questions, she just comes back to me. I pay her, I should say, find people that are good at that love doing it, and trust them to do it.
Yes, I love that, including the word trust.
Trust them to do
For
it.
sure.
And then listen to them when they need you. What I was listening to what you guys were all talking about before about and thinking about my employees. So the most recent TEDx talk that I did was on the myth that everyone's replaceable, because that's a total lie. No one is actually replaceable. People might be interchangeable within a position, but no one is replaceable because everybody brings their own self. And as I was writing that and rehearsing it and performing it and figuring it out, and I'm grateful to TEDx Rutgers Camden for allowing me to do that on their stage. My brother and I were talking about like truly what we think of ourselves as owners, because ownership is very fresh for us. It happened at the beginning of 21, but it was at the end of a 4-year intentional transition period, generational transition period, that we tried to take as slow and methodically and helpfully as possible. And we realized that as owners, and as what we really see our role as, is that it's our job to make sure that our folks can serve our customers at the maximum capacity possible. And so does that mean making sure that there's, water in the water machine? Does that mean making sure that we throw parties every once in a while? Yeah. It also means that when one of my customers is being verbally abusive to one of my staff members, we immediately step in and take that customer from them. But like the framework of leadership that we go through is that my job is to make sure they can do their job. And then we tell them that in retrospect, your job is to serve the customer and make the company look good. And if you need anything to do one of those two things that you don't have, I'm not a mind reader. You got to let me know and we'll figure out a solution together. And so that's kind of the framework that we've moved forward with. And that's a different incarnation. That is not how companies really worked in the 90s or the aughts. That is not how people were having conversations. Tony Hsu at Zappos was the first person to talk about corporate happiness. And he didn't do that till the 2000s. So this is just like the next kind of the freshest incarnation of how we do it and what office culture is going to look like. And I think it'll be around for a while because I think it's actually really in line with what humans need and how we actually work best as a team. And the more we understand humans, the more we can understand business. And it's a great relationship. But I think that's also the case in parenting and in relationships. My job is to make sure that part of my job is to make sure that you can live the best life you want to live. How can I help you do that? And showing up in all of your relationships with an attitude of service, I think goes a long way.
Fabulous, Doctor. Thank you so much for this amazing interview with all this relevant information that you shared. For people who want to reach out to you, what would be the best way to do so, and who would you like to contact you?
Anyone who, I love conversations, y'all. Anyone who has been a little bit tickled by something I said and wants to chase that curiosity, you can absolutely feel free. Our website is argooddoctors.com, all kind of one word, and that's easy to find us. And we've got a newsletter and a YouTube and everything else. If you've got an organization and you'd love some training on how to do these things in your practice, in your context, we'd also love to help. So don't hesitate to reach out. And you might have seen the Chiron. We've got an online training around a little bit earlier in what I was saying about if you're really afraid of being canceled. So we're going to talk about flat out words we don't say anymore and why we don't say them and what we say instead and how to react and function if you say the wrong thing or if somebody around you says the wrong thing. We're all language is super evolutionary. So we're going to have that conversation. It's June 1st at noon Eastern Standard Time. And the link to grab your ticket is on the screen. So those are kind of the two best ways right now to get in touch with me. And we'd love to be in service and in conversation with anyone who wants to be.
Thank you so much. I hope you will come back and see us because I know we're just scratching the surface with the information that you can share to help our audience. And I certainly have learned a lot from you today. I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. It would be only a pleasure. Anytime. Happy to be here.
Oh, we would love to have you back. Thank you. You've shared so much, and it's been such a fascinating conversation. And I think you're right. It's about being comfortable, isn't it, with the fact that as human beings we are perfectly imperfect. It's our imperfection that becomes our perfection, but we chase an ideal of perfection that's just not real. I think you've given us some really great examples and some really actionable ways in which we can get more comfortable being imperfect, but doing so in an intentional and an empowered way. I love what you said about the culture that you're building with your team. I've always been a big believer that as a leader, my job is to provide the service to my people that I expect them to deliver to the customer. Because if I don't deliver it to them, they won't be my people anymore. They won't buy my service. They won't want me to be their leader. So you've kind of got to demonstrate what you want them to do. And it was fascinating to see you kind of really articulate that so beautifully. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, and like, again, it's the simplest stuff to say out loud, right? Like treat your people like people, and they'll treat other people like people. But the execution of that is where we all need a lot of hand holding, because humaning is real hard.
Yes, it sure is. And our next show right after this is the power of etiquette and manners. So,
okay.
Yes. All right. So thank you again, Doctor, for being here. We look forward to welcoming you back on this show or any of our other shows.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
KIM-ADELE, I'm going to spotlight you. If you can share with our audience how they can reach out to you and who you would like to contact you.
Of course. Thank you. What a fascinating discussion. So anybody listening, if you would like to get in touch, please either message me directly. It's kim@kimadelrandall.com. I would love to chat, to hear your story and to find out how I can help you achieve your ultimate goal. And really what I'm looking for is people who either are where they want to be and want to be able to share that and give back, pay back to all of the people that helped them on their journey by sharing how you got there, sharing what steps you can take, or to those people that aren't where you want to be yet and might want some help in how you can achieve your ultimate goal.
Thank you so much, KIM-ADELE. I look forward to chatting with you soon.
And you have a lovely weekend. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Thank you, everyone, whether you're watching us or listening to us on the live or on the replay. I really do appreciate it. We'll be coming right back with the power of etiquette and manners. My co-host is Philip Sykes. He's joining us from London, and he is the principal of the British School of Excellence. And our guest today is JACALYN King, and she is joining us from the UK also. So thank you again to Dr. Kristin. Thank you to KIM-ADELE, and thanks to each and every one of you. We'll be back in less than 10 minutes. Bye.